Hey, welcome to the show, Leading and Growing Your Real Estate Business. This is Coach James Short, aka Shorty, and this is a show for those within the real estate industry wanting to lead and grow their real estate business. It's a series of interviews that we conduct for those within the industry. So we're finding out what those leaders are within the industry, what makes them tick, what's their story, what are their strategies, and how to become the leaders and the growers within the industry. But also, it's an interview series with those outside of the industry. I'm always a big believer of looking at a whole different part of the pie rather than just focusing on one part of the pie. Because what it does, it allows you to have a different perspective, allows you to get snippets or golden nuggets from those outside of the industry that can look in the industry and go, there's a different perspective. And so I encourage you to reach out to the guests. I encourage you to lean into these series to find out how can these pieces of information, experiences, stories help you lead and grow your real estate business. Welcome back to another edition. And ladies and gentlemen, this is an exciting podcast. This is going to be lots of fun. Ben Kingsberry, as a leader that does not believe in competing with his team, Ben is a non-selling principal focused on developing a team of highly professional agents to service the Townsville community. Outside the Townsville community, Ben is a passionate advocate for advancing professionalism within the real estate industry and is currently studying a Senior Executive MBA program at Melbourne Business School. He believes that successful client outcomes are a consequence of high quality people supported by world-class business systems and technology. It is not by coincidence that the team at Kingsberry Harcourts are second to none. Ben has been married to his wife Ashley since 2016, over which time they have welcomed three beautiful kids to their family. It's a busy household. And while his business family is exceptionally important to him, there is no question that family ultimately comes first. His belief in family first values extends beyond his own family, and the Kingsberry Harcourts business is focused on supporting each member of his team in both their personal and professional lives. Kingsberry Harcourts is also the naming sponsor and significant advocate of the Cure Starts Now, which is supporting the search for treatments and a cure for currently incurable childhood brain cancer. What an amazing mission that he's on. If you'd like to discuss anything in relations to property or career opportunities, get in contact with him at Kingsberry Harcourts. It's an honor and a privilege to have the man of the moment. Ben, mate, welcome to the show.
No, thanks very much, mate. Appreciate it. It's great to be here.
Mate, we've just been chatting before. You've been busy up north with lots of rain happening and so forth. Mate, is the sun shining up there at the moment?
Mate, it's good at the moment, and we were lucky. Townsville managed to avoid the worst of it. We had a lot of rain over a week. I think we had over 1.5 meters of rain, but we didn't have to deal with any major flooding events or anything. Just lots of leaky walls and leaky roofs and all those things that come along with a proper wet season.
So true, right? But as you said, as a team comes together, they work through it tirelessly, but they get the job done because I think it's uh, how you go about it, those leadership skills that you do bring to the table. I think it's super important, which I'm gonna love to unpack shortly. But I think that in itself, where you're off the so-called selling tools, but the ability to come and focus on the team and focus on developing the team. Would that be a fair thing to say?
Yeah, look, it's absolutely the idea. I've never been a selling agent at all. We've sort of always been on the business side of it, and yeah, we just try and make sure we give the team what they need to get their jobs done, rather than sort of trying to be in there, sort of doing it in competition or anything like that. So yeah, it works well for us.
Why? Okay, so let's go back to the humble beginnings. Why real estate? What got the twitch? What got the itch? What got you into the industry the first stage?
Look, I grew up around it. Family business to begin with. So myself, my wife bought that off my parents. Um, so that was sort of where it came from. But in between sort of growing up and that, I was down in Brisbane for a number of years and worked as a property valuer down there. So yeah, just been around the property side of the industry since sort of forever basically.
Grew
And
up
then
with
yeah,
it.
yeah, exactly, and then ended up shifting back to Townsville, and yeah, still here at the moment.
Beautiful, mate. Beautiful. What have you seen as some of the, from those early days to the now, what have you seen the biggest changes within the industry that you've noticed?
Look, industry wise, well, we had the Townsville market had a pretty tough period for quite a number of years. But I don't think that I think our industry has probably behaved similarly overall. I think the biggest change we're seeing is a move to a much more professional setup. We're seeing I think we're seeing a move in the industry to larger businesses, larger rent roles being probably the sustainable way of the future. I think the time of being able to run 300 or 400 property managements and sort of a couple of sales agents is getting harder and harder. And I think we're seeing a move to sort of your really boutique style of business, which still works, or to your larger business where you can provide the general support, the legislative compliance, all the things that are coming along. That the industry's got a lot more complicated in terms of just making sure that you're doing the right thing by the rules essentially. Um, and then obviously right now navigating our way through shortages of rentals, rising prices. More than anything, the real estate agent is sometimes the big bad wolf of everybody's sort of scapegoat. And I think it's a real pity because there's a lot of people out there doing a great job and get a little bit unfairly tarnished by that kind of reputation at times.
So true. Where do you see it going over the next couple of years? Is there any sort of, I mean, it's hard, obviously, crystal ball, but based from that transition to the potentially the bigger offices and the boutique sort of setups, are there any other sort of big milestones where you go, well, that's going to be a flavor over the next couple of years?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think the relationship piece is going to become more and more important. It's been the big driver of the sales business for a very long time. I think we're going to see that start driving the property management side a lot more. And I think a lot of that's going to come from the advent of AI, adding some efficiencies, adding some ability to do some of that back end work in a much more efficient way. And I think the result of that's going to be more and more focus on the relationship, both with the landlord and the tenant and contractors and everyone in between. Hopefully, freeing up more time to have real conversations and really deliver a deeper level of service.
So true, right? Because I think that's a really lost art in relation to, because I think PMs, they get so busy of doing all the task where sometimes that relationship can fall by the wayside, where sometimes they get lost in their emails, there's messages to be get back and so forth. But freeing them up with that side, as you said, that back end side, and allow them to develop that relationship, I think that's going to be a real game changer over the years. What could you see as the potential challenge around that for developing those relationships, if any, if any?
Oh no, look, I think there are challenges. I think one of the big ones potentially going to be that there's a lot of ingrained practices in real estate in general. There's a lot of this is how we do things because this is how we've always done it kind of attitudes.
Yes.
And I do think we're going to see a thing where there's going to be a significant advantage to those businesses that are moving sooner on some of these changes. And I think some will be caught flat-footed.
Mm,
Similarly, on an individual level, I think there's you know salespeople, administrators, property managers out there who really don't enjoy change,
mm,
and maybe you're a little bit too used to the way the systems have developed in the last probably 4 or 5 years has been a move to much more automation, much more emails and text messages and things kind of that. It's pretty easy to log a maintenance request without a phone call, things like that. Or to send it off to an owner without that extra level of engagement, which we're no different on in a lot of ways. It's just somewhere where we're focusing now to try and really get back to that. Often being able to solve a problem while improving a relationship and doing it faster than we were before. It's a real win on all levels, but a hard change at the same time.
yeah, I totally understand. Totally get that. And I think with that as well, what I've seen over the years is that because property managers, they love to help, right? They're problem solvers. And
Mm.
so the challenge becomes, I see, is that if we're developing, and I think it's so important to developing those relationships with landlords and tenants and suppliers, as you've mentioned. Yet I've seen time and time again is, where are those boundaries, right? Because you
Mm.
can easily fall into, oh, can you help me with all these other life problems? Blah, I'm going to dump, right? So I guess it's also training and coaching them to have those courageous conversations and to be aware of those boundaries, but also develop those relationships at the same time. Which developing those soft skills is a fundamental thing of no matter what industry, no matter what role you're in. But I think it's with PMs because they're so amazing at what they do and they want to help. That could be a little for me personally. I think I
Mm.
strongly agree with you as something that we need to, as an industry, be aware of down the track. Um, Thoughts around your market up north? How has that shifted? I mean, yes, you've gone through some ebbs and flows and some challenging times. Where is it at the now, and where do you see some of the transitions happening over these next little while? Hey guys, just a little side note here. How's it going? Are you on track this year? I know that sometimes this part of the year we can feel like we're in a bit of a grind, a bit of in the trenches. Are you on track from the original plans that you set out for the rest of this year? What I've realized is that between with this time of year, we get so distracted and we've got trying to chase so many shiny balls and go down so many rabbit holes. And that's why I created a program called the 90. It's a framework that actually allows you to achieve more in 90 days than ever before. Some of the feedback that we've got from some of the people that have used the process, the 90, is that they've achieved more in 90 days than the whole previous year. So if you'd like to have the tools, have the techniques, have the framework on the 90, so you and your team can achieve more in 90 days than ever before. What it does, and it impacts you of how to get clear, what you need to do, and who you need to be to show up in order to achieve the things you want to achieve over the next 90 days. Simply head over to jamesshort.com.au, click on join the waitlist, fill in your details, and one of the team members will be in touch and take you through the 90 framework. On with the show.
Yeah, look, it's very strong right now. It continues to strengthen. So we've seen significant growth over the last 4 or 5 years. Um, Townsville and a lot of North Queensland in general had probably sort of largely missed a property cycle where we'd had a really long flat period, or even reductions in price. Um, I think we've got the next 2 or 3 years are going to be very strong still, and what's been driving it up to now has been, you know, a lot of interstate investment. There's been quite a bit of interstate migration, largely from Victoria. Whether that continues at the same level, I'm not sure, but fundamentally, Townsville's got a demand and supply problem, and North Queensland in generally does. It's very hard to build anything. It's very hard to make a business case to build anything significant. So we're not seeing the creation of large scale strata or significant sort of development generally. And with the pipeline we've got of projects, and there's a lot of economic activity in North Queensland still. I think that's where we're going to see there's a real bottleneck in getting property built, and I think that's going to be where we see this maintained for quite a while. So, regardless of the interstate investment or whatever happens there, I think there's just that basic demand and supply imbalance.
Yeah, so true. So true. I want to talk about you, right? Because I love talking with those principals and directors that aren't a selling agent because I think it's such an important piece. Time and time again, there's so many different hats as business owners and principals and licensees wear, right? But when you're just focusing on leadership and growing the business and not jumping into selling as selling agent, what made you realize that this was what you needed to do? And why is that so important for you?
Yeah, look, when I first came back to Townsville, I probably had the idea that I was going to sell. Um, did that for about 5 minutes. I think I sold one property. Well, not I think I sold one property,
Yep.
and realized two things. One, that it probably wasn't my strongest suit, but at the same time, it just wasn't where I wanted to be. I much more enjoyed the business side of things. So, and growing up around it as well, like my old man sold for a little while when he first had the business, but that hadn't been something that I remembered him doing for a very long time. Um, and so sort of took on that same ethos of let's build a team, let's support a team, rather than trying to build a business based on having a selling principle that is sort of writing big dollars or anything like that. Let's see if we can do it another way. And it's worked out really well. There's been times over the years where I've sort of looked at it and thought maybe I should be when Townsville was really struggling, but but I think it's it's come out into being a pretty good decision for us. Not saying it can't be done successfully the other way; it certainly can, but it just wasn't something where I didn't want to be giving away sort of every weekend of sales and then trying to juggle running the business and trying to have a family on the other side of that as well. I think real estate in general is littered with a lot of failed businesses and failed relationships and all sorts of things where sometimes I think that is a result of just taking on too much. So yeah, it's become completely core to who we are. I can't imagine a circumstance which would get me back to looking at doing that.
Love it. I love it. What are some of the guiding principles as a leader that you used for yourself personally and also for leading the team? Are there any sort of set principles or lessons maybe that you've taken on from your dad running the family business that you now implement with yourself and your team?
Yeah, look, I think the core of it is just that people are key to the business. I find myself at times talking about culture. And if I'm in a job interview or something like that, I'm chatting to someone and I talk about how important culture is to us. I feel like it's the most overused word in real estate and in business in
Yeah,
general.
yeah.
And
Yep.
you've only got to look at the number of times you see, I don't know, maybe a real estate trainer or something standing at the front of the room talking about how they get up at 5 o'clock every morning and spend 2 hours in the gym and then they spend 45 hours. And it can be a bit inauthentic.
Yep.
So I find myself having to really qualify that we run, things like we run a full open plan office. I'm in a little acoustic booth sort of thing because myself, the leadership team, everyone is fully open. And we just have a really key opinion, a really key belief that by looking after our people, the consequence of that and giving them good systems as well, but by looking after our people internally and having the right people, everything else is kind of automatic. Money and profit comes out of the business as a result of starting with the right team and the right kind of ethos in the business. Obviously, assuming you're doing all the business bits right in between, but that really is fundamental to us. And in terms of lessons over the years, just that when we know we've got the wrong person, we need to address that. And like everybody, we're probably not quick enough to at times. But we have to. We're more careful than we've ever been on who we sort of bring in, and we don't drive that off who's writing commission or what numbers they're doing. We drive it off. Do we think they're going to fit with the current team? Do we think that's going to work? And we start there. So, not saying we always get it right, but that's the principle that we try to run to.
And that just shows you human though, right? Like it's yeah, we don't get everything right all the time, but it's what we
Yeah, of
do with
course.
that and how we correct it and how we learn and move on. And I think that's a beautiful piece around that. It's not about, the numbers, but it's how can that new person, melt in with the current team and the current structure. So that's fantastic. Any new initiatives, any new focuses, any new programs, products, over these next 12 to 24 months that's coming up for you guys?
There definitely will be. We're looking at the AI space quite a bit as to what that might look like for the industry, and I don't think that's clear yet. I think that's very
Yeah.
up in the air what that's going to look like, but I think there's going to be opportunity there. And the other thing we're working through at the moment is just really formalizing some of our operational process and getting getting to having not true standardization because we don't like to be too cookie cuttery. We'd like to give people space, but trying to really tighten up our process and our internal understanding of what that looks like. I think we've got a few bottlenecks, a few kind of bits of the business that are just as a result of us not being clear enough what the expectations are or what the process is. That we can make a lot of difference to people's efficiency. So it probably boils down to that is having a look at some operational efficiency side of things and how we can take some stress off people and potentially add some capacity as well.
Yeah, great, great. Now you're a busy family man. Yourself and Ashley and three kids. It's all systems go. How do you're running the business and you're leading and guiding and so forth during the week and day to day. How do you switch off? How do you manage or switch gears or switch focuses from business to home? And then do you have some strategies that you can like to share around managing home life with a busy home life as well? Any thoughts or ideas around that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it has to be a conscious choice. I think if you want to work hour that's available, you can. The good news is there's always something to do.
Yep.
um,
Yep.
but and again, not saying that I get it right all the time, but we have sort of from the early days of the business, we've made a commitment that we like to travel and do that sort of stuff. And I see a lot of people in real estate in general. Actually, I won't say in business because I think real estate's a real killer for it, sales in particular, where people are working 7 days a week. They're not taking that break. They're not taking that time. Um, some of the best advice I've ever had was things like if you haven't got anything really productive to do, just don't be there.
Yeah.
Don't be clicking around realestate.com. Don't be spending 4 hours a day researching something where really all we're achieving is sitting at a desk and not doing anything that's sort of productive. So taking the real estate offers so much flexibility and it offers such an amazing lifestyle that's available. A lot of the time we get caught up into every phone call might be worth a commission, every missed call, every whatever. If I've got a day off with my family, then I don't count that as an appointment. That's negotiable sort of thing. You see people get caught all the time. Um, I think you've really got to choose where your barriers are, where your boundaries are, and try and be quite strong in protecting the time that you're choosing to take away. Saying that from a position too, I've been in plenty of times over the years where we just haven't had that flexibility, or I haven't felt like we had. But yeah, now we try really hard to still travel a bit, to still you know protect that time and just I don't know, you've just got to do it. You've just got to make it a choice. Same as if you've got a appointment with a vendor, you're not going to book something else over the top of it. I think your personal life needs to be sort of dealt the same way.
Yeah, I love that. I love that piece where if you've got nothing to do, just don't sit there and click away,
Yeah,
like it's so true. We get down those rabbit holes and thinking we're productive, but really in the end of the day and setting those boundaries and then also having, having that time designated with the family. I think it's yeah, super important. Ben, on the show, we have our 60-second quiz to find out a little bit more about our guests. Are you willing to play?
absolutely.
All right, here we go. What's your favorite movie?
Oh, favorite movie. I haven't even got an answer to that one. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Favorite food?
Favorite food is probably Indian.
Nice. What's your favorite holiday destination?
Uh, Pretty well anywhere there's a mountain and some snow, but Japan, I'd have to go Japan as top of the list. I think.
Yeah, nice, nice. Do you have a morning routine?
Not. I've got 3 kids.
There's your morning routine there and
So
there.
yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm not an early morning person. I'm probably more of a late at night do some things, and
Yep.
mornings tend to be get up and get moving, and whatever's on with them to get organised.
So true. And I would suggest that would be your evening routine as well until they go
Pretty
to bed.
much, yes.
Love it. So good. So good. Do you have a most embarrassing moment?
Ah, most embarrassing moment. I'm drawing a blank. I'm sorry. No,
That's all right.
I'm
That's all
probably
right.
I'm probably not one to get too hung up on things like that. So there's nothing that sticks in my brain.
Cool. If you could choose five inspirational people to have dinner with, who would they be? That could be dead or alive.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some really interesting people would be people like for current relevance would be like Gary Vaynerchuk that sort of does quite a bit of marketing and whatnot over in America from a business point of view. Um, I think you'd have to go back to I've got 100 names running through my head. Um, I'm drawing real blanks on where I want to actually go with that answer.
So many
Uh,
different avenues, right?
yeah, and like personal or professional, whether you go to your inspirational kind of leaders of the background and people like Winston Churchill, those sort of guys, but it feels like kind of a nothing response at the same time. Um, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have good answers. I'm not good with these pop quizzes.
That's all right. That's all right. What about if you're prime minister for the day? Is there something that you would change?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a real disconnect in politics and the way the country's run, where we just, I think the way our system's set up, it's really hard to attract genuinely good people.
Mm.
I'd be looking at fundamental change of even things like the way the pay structures and all those sort of things work to try and come up with ways that we can attract people who are there for the right reason, who have real genuine background and capability. And I think one of the problems we have in politics is we're not, for instance, we're not paying enough to get people that really, that could make real change. I'd like to see whatever the change is to attract a much higher caliber of people to the jobs, across all council, across local council, state, federal, everything. I think it would, I think it's largely what we need. And probably the other thing I'd do is I'd be looking at ways that we can. Years and years ago, we just gave up on making stuff. We just gave up on making stuff. We gave up on making cars. We gave up on everything. You look at our sophistication of exports now, we're at 100th in the world or something like that, where we just pull stuff out of the ground and sell it, send it overseas. So I'd be really interested in looking at ways that we can improve what we do. I think Australia's in a, to be honest, quite a dangerous spot where we've become a bit, I don't mean a bit dumb as people, but a bit dumb in terms of what we're doing with our resources, and the value we're adding to it. And I think in 20 or 30 years' time, that could hit us really hard if we don't address it.
Spot on, right? And I think it's taking that longer viewpoint of like what would that 20 to 30 year plan be? And this is the challenge with governments is that because, every number of years we go through another
Yep.
election cycle, rather than having that 20 to 30 year view plan, is that we get so much natural resources out of the ground, we sell it and then we import it back in, and it's like, it's just, yeah,
Yep.
it's
Look,
all wrong.
we looked at it and we just went, this is too hard. Car industry, whatever. It's great to see the government supporting Whyalla at the moment, for instance. I think that's a really good thing. Um, but we just went, this is all too hard. Where instead of that, okay, our cost of labor is hard. We should have been world leaders in automation. We should have been world leaders in the technology that allows us to make stuff efficiently. Um, we're quite the opposite.
Yeah, yeah. Over the years, what's been your best piece of advice?
Best piece of advice as a business owner, it ties into what I said earlier. Best piece of advice has been, at the end of the day, and we've got a couple of business partners here as well. But at the end of the day, if you're not in the right mindset, if you're not in the right frame to be in the business, if you're a bit annoyed about something or whatever, get up and leave. Your energy is going to be the leader in that office. Your energy is going to destroy what's happening. Just don't be around. Go and take whatever time you need to get yourself in the right headspace. And if I can offer two, if I can give
Yeah,
two,
go for it.
the other one is that if you're going to be a leader of any sort, you can be whatever you want. You can be a leader that's really, really authoritative. You can be a leader that is everyone's mate. You can be a leader that is really casual. You can be one that's driven by KPIs, whatever it might be, whatever your style is, it will work. You can build a team around any style of leadership. You can't build a team around multiple styles of leadership. If you're everyone's mate and then you walk in and rip someone for not meeting their KPIs and tear them to pieces in front of the team, you just immediately make people uncomfortable and they don't know what to expect. So consistency is really, really important as to who you are.
Love it. That's so true. So true. Ben, how can the audience reach out, follow your journey, get in contact with you? Where's the best place for them to find out more?
Yeah, look, happy to chat anytime. If anyone's got any questions they want to chat about, my phone number and everything's all on our website at kingsbury.com.au. But other than that, connections on LinkedIn or whatnot. LinkedIn's probably a pretty good option. But yeah, always happy to engage with anyone in the industry to chat about anything.
Awesome. Ben, really appreciate your time, energy, and expertise today. Mate, thank you for
Cool.
jumping on the show and really appreciate it.
Excellent, James. Really appreciate it. Thank you.